Hey guys, Ben here, and in today's video, I wanted to talk about the 1000 cuts theory. So, what is the 1000 cuts theory? It is actually derived from China, from an ancient torture method. And the concept was to induce 1000 cuts into a person to kill them slowly. So, that was obviously a type of torture. However, today's video is actually about productivity. So, what does it have to do? Easy. All right, let me just start by an example. So let's say this is our day. We start 8 a.m. and let's say we start, yeah, it should be a.m. And let's say we finish 8 p.m. All right, so let's assume we start. This is our first chunk of, our first block of productive work. All right. Let's say we get a random email. All right. We just reply to it quickly, or a message, right? Like, let's just say Slack message. All right, so we work on that, right? I'm just going to draw this underneath. All right, let's say we get another message or email or whatever, right? Email, another thing. All right, let's say it's lunchtime, right? So we think about lunch. Lunch. And again, I'm going to cast this line right under this. So what does this mean? I call this shadow. What do I mean with this shadow? This is the time it takes to get back onto track, like back into focus. So basically, every time you have a cut here, takes away your focus, right? So just cuts your focus basically. And the time it needs to get back into focus is this line here, all right? So basically, whenever you get like a small thing, like a random interruption, basically what happens is that you accumulate wasted time, which is this. And when you just add them all together, right, you have a big chunk of your day that's basically wasted. And that's what I mean with 1000 cuts. It is basically the concept of inducing cuts into your workday that decreases your productivity or your output. And the problem about this, it's silent. Like, you're still working, you're working on your desk, you're spending the time, right? Like, you're working basically. All of these were kind of work related, right? Or like lunch, like what am I going to eat? Like, what coffee am I, like, where am I going to grab my coffee from? What am I going to wear today? Right? All these things, they're like, you take them for granted, like no big deal, not a huge thing. Because usually people think like when your productivity gets interrupted, it's like one major thing, right? Like maybe you're sick, or maybe some event happened, right? Something like that. And then, all right, your productivity is going to be down that day. However, most of the time, it's many small cuts, and it keeps going and going. And it takes a lot of your mental energy, right? And you can kind of see it like an iceberg even, right? So this is the iceberg, right? And then this is the sea, right? So when we're sailing our ship, we just see this small dot, the tip, right? However, we hit it and we don't realize that it takes away all this focus. And I'm sure you've realized sometimes you're like really in the zone when you, for example, you have those chunks and you're like, damn, like, hey, I actually managed to get like a big thing out of the way. But then you don't realize later, it's just like random things keep popping up. Like, like I said, those random examples that you take for granted, and they hit you, right? They hit your boat, and enough hits will actually sink the ship, right? You can also, I like the example of a battery actually, right? Because this is your battery, this is your motivation or your energy for the day. And what happens is you just keep, these are your small hits, all of them together, they take a lot of energy. And this is actually not including like, the focus work that's being taken away. That's actually, the biggest contributor. So, in the end, we're just like wasting a lot of energy. And then what we have left, this is our what we actually have left, and this is obviously not enough to tackle like the major big tasks that we strive for, or that we try to accomplish for our days. And and um you know this is basically what kind of holds us back in some way. And most of the time you actually realize these kind of things is when you change your environment. For example, when I moved to Dubai, which is where I am right now, I did not have my typical work setup anymore, right? So what I realized is like, hey, where is my charger? Where am I going to order food from today? How long is it going to get me to get to this meeting, right? Like all these small things where it's like, hey, they are part of your day, right? You cannot just ignore those things. But like you're out of your routine and you're kind of out of your system, right? Like productive people, they build systems so that their days go structured, right? Like, I have my charger here, charger in right place, lunch, right? I know where I get lunch from, gym, right? Like all at their fixed time, for example, right? Or like specific meeting, right? Like, stuff like that. Whereas when you're in a new environment, or maybe you're in your environment, you just haven't set the right system yet. You're just like, hey, where is my charger? And then you go from here, where do I get lunch? All right, maybe I'll just go to the gym now, right? And then maybe I'm gonna do this. Maybe I'm gonna do that, right? And then, as you can see here, you go like this. When you go that way, you don't achieve much. You're not a productive person, right? So the goal really is to set a system for your day and the way you work. And one thing I actually like to do is to implement the Pomodoro technique, which is this device here actually. And what I do is I set the time, right? For example, now you can set up a random time. I usually like to work in 30-minute intervals, right? And I just set the timer. I click it. And in those 30 minutes that I'm now working, I don't get distracted. I force myself to complete a certain task. So let's say I'll usually have my task sheet for the day, like on this board, for example, right? Or like on a random board, or I'll just write them down anywhere. And this is task A, this is task B, task C, and so on. And what I try to do is in those 30 minutes, I go one by one by one. So I tackle task one, done. I don't reply to random emails that just come through. I don't reply to random messages that come through. I commit to getting those things done while my counter is counting. All right. And once my counter is done, I will check. All right, I got this email. Let me see what this is. All right, let me check my messages quick. Because all right, I get it. You cannot just ignore these things. But when these things hinder you to get the main things or the important things done, then this is when you need to start implementing sort of a system, right? Obviously, every person is different. Some people, they might manage, right? Like maybe they just don't easily get distracted. However, most of us, we get hit by 1,000 cuts and it kills our productivity, right? So what we try to do here is two things. First, we build a system, which is, what I call my Pomodoro technique, which is where I go and I get tasks done within a counter, and I try to keep those random distractions outside of my 30-minute intervals, right? That's one thing. Second thing is minimize your cuts. Like you want to minimize your distractions. How do you do that? It's by planning and structuring your day. So, for example, if you say, hey, every Monday at this time, I go to the gym, or like, let's say every morning, 6 a.m., I go to the gym, 6 a.m. sharp, done, right? Every day at 8 a.m., I check my emails, right? Done. So by setting kind of these, you can kind of call them like you're limiting yourself in some way because you're going by a fixed schedule. However, by doing that, you kind of remove some of those cuts. So let's say I hired a chef, all right? I did actually, and it has been great. I highly recommend that if you can afford it. But what you do is you hire a chef. It takes away part of the lunch thing, right? Like one thing that is every day, it's huge, right? Like what you eat is a big factor of your day. It's breakfast, it's lunch, it's dinner, right? It's 3 meals. Each one, just to prep your meals, it can take you an hour. Just take that for the whole week, right? How much time is wasted? It's not just the time wasted of the actual cooking process or prepping your meals. It's actually the time thinking, hey, what am I going to cook? It's like 1 hour before lunchtime. Hey, you know what? Like, do I feel like this? Do I feel like that? Right? That's so much time wasted here where you could be, focusing on important things to increase your output, right? This is what we care about. Output up. So what we need to ask ourselves, what things can we actually do to increase our output? If that means hiring a chef, do it. If that means setting a fixed schedule, even if that means like, hey, being a bit less flexible, does it increase your output? Do it, right? And all of those things. So, like I said, to sum it up, decrease your cuts. How do you do that? By setting up systems, structures, routines, and follow a proven work method that allows you to get stuff and things done faster. All right, I hope this helps. This helped me a lot. This is exactly the method that I implement, and I believe it is part of my success and why I'm able to be a productive person. All right, so I hope this helps, and yeah, have a good one.